when I met Jesus Christ. He was almost 10 years old, and he was helping his mother push a trolley full of all they owned. And because they couldn't find an inn they could get in, they were heading to the city and leaving Bethlehem. Couldn't you perform a miracle? I'm out of them, he said. I tried turning nothing into warmth, but it just made my mother cry. It just made my mother cry. Mary Magdalene has become a man, and tonight he's old, and she has been riding my tram. Now it's late and she's trying to sleep beneath a poster for a bank. Your dreams are important to us as it bathes her face in gold. Come give us your natural gifts, we make wealth from toil. Come pretend for history's page that we're advancing Australia fair. Let's pretend that we're all advancing Australia fair. Back down the road I found the church we built on the black man's bones was empty, and out the front a sign read all but sold. A sign read all but sold. And we all owe so much money, but to whom we're not quite sure. So head down, we just keep running along our fading golden shores. So head down, we just keep running along our fading golden shores. Come give us your natural gifts, we make wealth from toil. Come pretend for history's page that we're advancing Australia fair. Let's pretend that we're all advancing Australia fair.
So here we are in November. What the hell happened to March? I don't know. It seems the whole world seems to be just racing towards inevitability. But tonight I'm bringing on Michael Ginsburg. Michael Ginsburg, I've been watching on Substack for a long time, and he's a very powerful voice. He did a very powerful interview recently with Robin from Courage is the Cure. So I invited him on to have another chat too about his thoughts about the freedom movement and moving ahead and other things like that. So let's get him on. G'day, Michael.
Hey, Michael. Nice being on.
Yeah, can I ask before we start? Literally, COVID is in our lives. It's like BC and AC, before COVID and after COVID. If you took the jab and it didn't affect you, you don't know what we're talking about. But if you decided you're not participating, your life changed. You've been on an odyssey ever since. What were you doing before you'd even heard of the word COVID?
Yeah, so my background is in technology. So I was working in technology. Last thing I was kind of doing a little bit of digital marketing and cybersecurity. That was kind of the last two things that I was doing. Look, it's been an interesting thing, and I have to say, like, I started COVID, so I spent pretty much all of 2020 as pretty much a normie. Like, I didn't quite understand what was happening. And only probably around March 2021 is when I started to think, oh, hold on, there's something is not right here. And I even remember like the exact thing that has actually happened. I wrote about it.
Oh, dude, I'm really interested in those. What is the exact moment? Yeah.
Okay, so I believe it was March 2021, and there was a post. Like, I haven't used Facebook, even though I was in digital marketing and stuff like that. I haven't really used Facebook for years, but I kind of started doing it again when COVID started, because I kind of wanted to follow the news, the health advice and all that sort of stuff. And I remember I came across a post on the ABC Newcastle page, right? And they had their drive show. And they had a guy there, I can't remember his exact name, but he was talking about ivermectin, right? And he was also mentioning that there was a trial, trial going on in Israel that seemed to be yielding very, very good results, and all that sort of stuff. And I remember I kind of started listening to it, but I was out, right? I couldn't really listen to it, and I didn't have headphones. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just bookmark, I'll save the post, in Facebook, you can save the post, and then I'll come back to it and listen to it when I'm home. And that was the next day. And then I came back to the post. The post is still live on the ABC Newcastle page, but the page that it links to is gone.
Wow.
It's gone, and it's gone to this day. Let me see the name of the person, actually, because I think it's actually important. Who was that guy? He was quite a prominent guy. Let's have a look. So yeah, when Scott Morrison came out with all his stuff, we're all in this together and all. Robert Clancy.
Oh yes.
Robert Clancy, right? So that was and then he was talking. Actually, the first interview was about hydrocolloquine or whatever. I can never, but HCQ.
No, I've learned to say that. Hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine. That's it.
It took me ages to learn how to say that. Yeah.
That one survived.
Yeah.
The other one, and I'm just looking at a screenshot of it. So that was later. That was June 25th, 2021, ABC Newcastle. Ivermectin should be part of our response, Professor. University of Newcastle immunologist, Emeritus Professor Robert Clancy says he believes a new Oxford University study will find ivermectin is useful in treating COVID-19. Listen to the radio interview here, right? So that post is still there. People can still find it on the ABC Newcastle page, and it was the drive show. But if you click on it, there's nothing there, right? Sorry, page not found. That's the message to this day.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's odd, right? So that's a bit strange. Why? That kind of seems important, right? And I was just to get so you kind of understand. I mean, before that, before all this stuff, ABC was kind of my source of truth, in the sense that I thought, okay, well, the public broadcaster, they're not as influenced by
I listen to it all the time.
Yeah.
I was actually on there a lot because of my poetry. Not a lot, but my poetry and my plays. They were often getting me on for interviews about that. Now I'm
it's amazing, and only I think when was it, a couple of weeks ago that famous pedophile tape came out. So I mean, from 1975, there was also the ABC. So I mean, but anyway, so I thought, okay, that's a bit odd, and well, maybe there's commercial channel would have commercial interest, but why would they remove that? That seems kind of important. I mean, I'm a tech guy. I thought, okay, well, might have been some error in the website, right? And I thought, okay, well, they'll probably fix it and it'll be back in a couple of days. And it never really happened. So that kind of started made me think, okay, well, that's a bit odd, right? That's a bit strange. Then the mandates came, right? And then I thought, okay, well, fine. Okay, well, maybe this is a solution, that vaccine thing. That's okay. But guys, I mean, let's agree. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, I remember I was even talking to someone about it, at work at the time when I was with the place where I was working. And well, look, I mean, this thing hasn't even been tested for 6 months, right? So if some people want to go and take it, by all means, knock yourself out. But you can't tell me that I have to do it, right? I mean, that on any level, that makes no sense, right? So obviously, that's not what happened, as we all know, and they did make everyone take that, right? Even though officially, Scott Morrison said, my government didn't mandate anyone, right? And then, like in December 2021, the mandate started in Queensland. So, all these signs started popping up, like, proof of vaccination required to enter the premises. And I mean, I guess for me, like, I mean, I guess as a Jewish person as well, and like, growing up with stories from my grandparents and stuff like that, like, no entry for, like, Jews and dogs and stuff like that. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Sorry,
man.
sorry for my language.
Can I just hold you there? I totally understand that. I can't believe. I remember we were in Balaclava for a bit. I can't believe more Jewish people didn't feel the same. I've
Oh, I think
interviewed,
a lot of people did.
but they kept it quiet. They still complied.
Correct.
That always amazed me because they're very outspoken people, they're very strong people. You don't fuck with the Jews, let's be honest. And here they are. Here they are, just lining up. They even closed the synagogues, and they're like, "Yeah, that's okay." You go, "What?" Yeah,
They
these
closed
were the
everything.
things that were confusing me. Yeah, they closed everything. Yeah,
they closed everything. So and I mean, then, like, that seemed okay. Well, that's really extreme. And then in January, late January, early February 2022 was obviously the Freedom Convoy in Canada, and then the subsequent thing, like in Australia and pretty much all over the world. And then I realized, okay, come on, Canada, really? Like, the model of a free nation. And then in Australia, the same thing. Like, they used like sonic weapons on people because they protest. Okay, all right, I've seen enough, right? Something else is going on. So that was kind of my moment. And I guess for me, even though I spent like 2020 being like, a normie, the switch happened very, very quickly. Once I realized, okay, something else is going on, boom, all right, boom. Like the switch, okay, let's figure out what's actually going on. And that's basically what happened.
Well, what's interesting, though, is that, there is one more time in your life where you've actually experienced this. Maybe not as a Jew, actually, but I was Christian born, and it's Santa Claus. When you're Santa Claus, you reach about 7 or 6 or 7, you're going, I can't remember but you suddenly realize everybody's lying to you. The media, everyone's lying to you about Santa Claus, everyone. And you reason you don't get too upset is the presents still keep coming. That's the important thing. So you lose the fat man, but you still get the presents. You don't have to get up and put cookies out for him anymore. But in actual fact, everybody's lying. And this is kind of the same. It's a really strange moment to wake up and think everybody's lying. People are going for it. Some people actually believe they're lying and they're still doing it, even though they believe they're lying. It was an extraordinarily lonely experience because you have to, as yourself, as a man, have to go, what do I do now? There's something really wrong here, and no one will listen to me. And there's a moment before you found, I mean, mine changed once I went to the marches early, and then I found my tribe, and then that went away. And Rahana, who I was with then, was on my side. But for a small time, it was like Rahana and I going, what the hell? The whole world's going nuts around me.
Yeah. So for me, the thing that was frustrating is I knew something was going on, right? But I didn't understand what. Like, and it's okay. Why are they doing it? Like, why is it so important for them to like push this? Like, and any opposition to like mandates or vaccines or any of that sort of stuff, like meets such a heavy-handed response. And in countries that up until then, I mean, Canada especially, I mean, like, Canada is like they're like nice people and like, nice government. They're all very polite. All the Canadians I've ever met, like, they're always like very polite people, always very friendly. Like, then like it's the last like people that would like you would think would cause any like, ruckus or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it was very like, and that's the thing for me. Like, I need like I'm like a very detailed. Like I need to like, if there's a mystery, like I need to know what's going on. Like, and I knew that something else was going on, but I didn't quite understand what. Exactly. That thing. Like,
I took this on King Street just before one of these guys shot me with a rubber bullet. But look, this was all about your health. Hey, Michael Ginsburg, we want you to take the vaccine, or we're going to come and terrorize you.
Yeah. And I mean, this is something that has never been seen in the West. I mean, we used to see that, like, in like, in dictatorships. We used to see it in like, in Eastern Europe and the communism and stuff like that. And I mean, I come from, maybe I don't look like that, but I mean, I do come from an Eastern European background, and like, both of my parents grew up in the Soviet Union, right? So I mean, I understand. Yeah. So I understand, like, what Soviet Union is, and I think like that's the thing. I just want to like really, I just want to commend you, because I think like one of your pieces is actually like was something that has made a profound impact on me. So you interviewed a Romanian lady by the name
Yeah.
of Tabitha, I remember, if I
Tabitha.
remember correctly. Tabitha, yeah.
Tabitha, yeah. Yeah.
Now, I mean, we if you want, we can play a segment of the interview that I think is the most pertinent.
Sure.
But I mean,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, all right, okay.
Let me
So
tell you about that interview. Let me tell you about that interview, right? So we got to Brisbane and we're in this little shitty hotel room. And the first one to come up was Tricky, the leader of the Queensland People's Revolution. He came in, he wasn't sure about me, but he ended up doing a brilliant interview. And I could see her hanging around. And there was another nurse that did an interview after her that was just as powerful. She was from the ER. So there was 3 very powerful interviews in this small space of time in this dingy little hotel room, and that had a purple wall, a dark purple wall. That's why it looks so good. And then she sits down and she starts telling the story. Even as I was recording it, I was thinking, this is historic. That's why I don't get in them. This is a
100%.
historic interview. This
I
is
mean, that's worth
absolute,
repeating.
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
I think the fact that for me personally, what resonated the most is first of all, she comes from like a kind of like a similar background to me. She
Yeah.
lived through, like personally. I mean, I left like the Soviet Union when I was 4 years old, so I don't really. The only thing I know is like based on stories, but not really firsthand
Yeah.
experience. But she experienced stuff, right?
Yeah.
And when was that? That was 2022 when you interviewed her.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And what she said
The end of
there.
2023, yeah.
So I mean, let's play the what she said there was like a profound thing. I mean, let's where is she? There she is.
Yep,
Right?
here, I'll play it up.
What do you think we have to do to move forward?
Well, number one thing is you can't comply your way out of tyranny. Like, if
You've learned that.
I have learned this. My parents have been through communism for 45 years. They've endured communism for 45 years. They tried to comply with it, and it only got worse and worse and worse. It never got better. You can't comply your way out of tyranny. And this is what the message that I would like to send out there. If people don't remember anything from this interview, it's just this. You simply cannot comply your way out of tyranny. You are either brave, you stand up now while we still have some freedoms left, while we can go out on the street and not get shot and killed. You either stand up now or you're going to be a slave for the rest of your life. Or until when people pick up their courage and fight back like we did during the revolution. But then if they don't stand up now, if they decide to stand up later, it's going to come at the cost of their lives. Mark my words. Mark my words. If we don't do it now, it will cost the lives of many people.
In part 2, this is just a little addition to it, to how they finally won. So they were getting shot in the streets. Mm-hmm. How did getting shot in the streets turn to victory?
Well, you won't believe this, but it wasn't. So I want to explain the difference between a protest and a...
That's very important. That's very profound what she's saying here. So I encourage people to listen carefully because it is profound.
Revolution. Because we often call our protests revolution. They are not a revolution. They are protests. Not that I have anything against calling them a revolution, but I just want to make that distinction because in a revolution, they were there to win. And they said, we are not going home until this government comes down. Kill us, do whatever you want with us. We are not going home. In a protest, you go there, march around nicely and come home to your house. So there's a big difference between a protest and a revolution. So I just want to explain that. So people kept turning up. They went into the media stations and they chased the people out. And we were watching TV, and all of a sudden it's this line, like there's nothing happening. And we were like, wow, this has never happened on TV. And then a few seconds later, it was the people from the People's Revolution. And they were like, we've taken over the media. It's ours now. From now on, you're going to hear the truth. No more indoctrination. They would go into the police stations and or schools, all the government offices, and bring out all their crap and all their communist indoctrination books and whatever they had, and they would made a big bonfire in the middle of the town and just burnt everything to the ground and chased them all out. And basically, but really, the way we won in the end is this: because the police and the army were ordered to shoot into the people. And they did it for a while, for a few days. But at some point, their humanity kicked in. At some point, they realized that they are human beings and they cannot do this to their fellow person. They cannot do this to their, in the streets, they said, it could be my mom, it could be my dad, it could be my brother or my friend, and I'm shooting into them because I'm ordered to do this by the corrupt dictatorship and the corrupt government. This is when people tell me governments are good. I'm like, you don't understand what governments have the capacity to do to people. You don't understand. The communists have killed 100 million people worldwide. In 100 years of communism, they have killed 100 million people. Do you know that more people were killed by governments worldwide than by anything else? The communists, 100 million. It's the government that's the real threat. I'm not saying there isn't good governments. I'm not saying there aren't good politicians and good people. But when the government goes rogue, when the government turns into a dictatorship, then we have the duty to stand up and defend ourselves and defend our freedoms and defend our families and defend our future and the future of our nation and the future of our kids.
Amen. Yeah. So, I think for me, you obviously realized when you were doing this interview that it's pretty profound. But I think what is even more profound is how it kind of the scary, how well it has aged. That was, you said, late 2022, we are 3 years later. Yeah. If we did what she said back then, I just I encourage people to think where we would have been now, right? And I'm not saying specific, do this or do that or do whatever, but if when I listen to that, this lady, she nailed it. She just spoke some profound, significant truth, that probably people who don't share her background and life story will not even understand how profound it is.
I remember she told me her 17-year-old son left and his mother said, don't go. And he said, I got to go. I'm not coming back unless I'm free or I'm dead. That's what he went. And that's when he thought they win. But just after that, Michael, I have to say the next nurse that came in was a nurse who was double jabbed and injured, but she'd worked in the ER. And she talked about all the deaths and everything she was seeing in ER from the jabs that the government and the doctors and the nurses were all covering up. So what she said before in the second interview that Tabitha, the other nurse, she actually proved it. It's happening now. The government is killing it. It's a democide happening, and everybody's just compliant about it, keeping it quiet, working to help the government keep it quiet. That's the profound thing that I struggle with,
And let's think about what happened since, right? So what happened since? We did demonstrations, right? We signed petitions. We had, I don't know how many election campaigns, Australia and elsewhere, right? There was that big election in the US, like, Trump came back supposedly, like, I don't know how people thought that, like, the father of the vaccine will save them. But anyway, like, so not only we didn't actually, like, internalize what this lady said, we like completely ignored it, like completely ignored it. And I mean, she's telling you the warning. She's saying, you have no idea what a government that has gone wrong is capable of doing. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And she's right, because people like, who grew up in the West didn't grow up under a dictatorship or under a communist regime. They don't know.
No, they don't know. There's another interview I did, which is even more profound, I think, and that's from a woman called Lynn, who was living in Singapore, and then she moved to Hong Kong before the Chinese took over. And now she was over here. She saw my bus and she decided she wanted to talk. She didn't know anything about us. It was in Dalesford. What she said was, because when she was doing the interview, I said, you realize because you're under Chinese control, you go to jail for saying this. You could be jailed for this interview. And she said, or punished, she said, I'm already dead. And what she meant was, she's gone from before Chinese took over. Apparently, Hong Kong, everyone talked about everything. In the cafes, they were always talking about politics. Once the Chinese took over, that all finished until now, she says, in Hong Kong, you just walk around with a placid face as though you're really happy, nothing's wrong, and you hide yourself inside, like Anne Frank in The Cellar, except the cellar's in your, or the attic, except the attic's in your soul. And she said, it feels like you're dying all the time because you just can't be you. So that's a warning from now where we're going. China's already done what our government's doing, and this woman is coming to us going, it's like being dead but alive. You just
It's worse than that. I always say,
now it's happening.
Yep.
And we're heading
Yep.
there, and everyone's just going,
Yeah. So people are always like, they're worried, like, that their livelihood is going to get hurt. And like, I mean, look, it's legitimate. Like, the family is going to get hurt, like, their whatever house, like, maybe anarchy, nobody knows, like everyone is scared of the unknown. People ultimately, and that's very normal and natural, people are afraid of dying. But as you said, and the way I put it, there is a state of existence that is actually worse than that. It is possible.
Yes.
And we are pretty much there. Like in Australia, definitely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, outspoken ones are the last. And you can count the outspoken Australians. There's not a lot of us. I know there's a lot of podcasts, but you put them all together, there's not a huge amount. Hoodie, the White Rabbit, Dave O'Negs, Topher, yourself, and there is a group, but it's not like millions of them.
And it's a lot smaller now, Michael. I don't know if you've noticed that. A lot smaller now. Why?
Yeah.
Because people have put everything on the line, right? I mean, they've risked everything. They've given their all. Like, they went to all these like marches, like, every weekend, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like literally not, like zero achievement, not even like a tiny bit, like nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So like, I mean, we should have been here like a year ago, 2 years ago, and assess and think, hey, like, look, maybe there's something wrong with our approach for the very simple reason that it's not getting any results. Like, that's like the thing for me, like, when I kind of started like being obsessed about actually understanding what's actually going on, once I realized that there's something else, the official narrative going on, that's when I started consuming a lot of alternative media. Like, I discovered Rumble, like, I started being on all these like various Telegram channels and stuff like that. And I started consuming a lot of content, and it did kind of help me understand what's going on. But it also kind of left me worse off in the sense that, like, well, you get all this information. Okay, well, what am I supposed to do with this now? Right?
That's a big problem.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back to the marches. Yeah. Before you go on, though, I just want to go back to what you said with the marches. Now, you're saying nothing was achieved. They actually were achieved in the march because we were a very segregated group. Most people didn't even know, and I still meet people who don't even know freedom movement exists. But in the march, for those times we were marching, we became very close. What we were doing, though, I think, I wrote about this called The Language of Protests. I think they knew there was going to be protests 100%. And they expected it. And what they decided to do was ignore us like we were petulant children. We're just a child having a tantrum. Parents do it to kids all the time. Just ignore it. He'll burn himself. I think they just waited for us to burn ourselves out. And we,
Bingo.
because we thought we were living in a democracy and we thought we were living in a free country where if the people got up in that numbers, we took it for granted that the Australia we knew would go, oh, guys, really? You're that upset about it? Okay, let's reconsider and we'll have a talk about this. What they didn't realize was their country was gone. And whoever was in charge now was taking them to a new reality, and they could have as many tantrums as they want. It wasn't going to stop where they were heading, and so they ignored us. So it's not that we failed, it's just we were playing the wrong game on the wrong field. They'd already
Yeah,
prepared for this battle. We didn't stand a chance, but we did
yeah. I
meet
mean,
each other, which was very healthy.
that is definitely helpful. But I mean, I mean, we can talk about semantics, but I mean, if we did exactly what, like, the enemy, what the other side expected us to do, right? And they saw these like marches, okay, we'll let them march and, like, demonstrate a bit. If they get too rowdy, we'll rough them up. But, like, we'll let them march. It's kind of like a valve release, like, a pressure release, like a pressure cooker, where you need to, like, release the steam. And then everyone goes back to normal. And, like, I mean, people say, like, we stopped the mandates. I'm sorry. Let's be realistic here. None of, like, our efforts stop the mandates. The only I can't speak for other countries, but in Australia, definitely in Queensland, definitely in Victoria, definitely in WA, the mandate stopped because they achieved their objective, right? In terms of percentage vaccinated. That's it. Mission accomplished,
Yeah,
right? They don't need to do it
yeah.
anymore because you had like 90%, like, double jabbed or triple jabbed or whatever, right? That's it.
Do
It's
you
as
think
simple
in
as that.
Victoria? Do you think in Victoria, in Victoria, there was an extra thing? Like Melbourne's been a testing ground, in like say in theatre world, Melbourne's a testing ground for musicals. So they want to put a musical on Broadway, they bring it to Melbourne, and because New York doesn't know Melbourne exists, if it fails, they never hear about it, and if it works, it's a similar crowd, then they take it. So it's like a practice ground. I've heard they do it for IT programs. I've heard they do it for lots of stuff. Do you think Melbourne was a testing ground to see how compliant people could be? And that's why they had so many lockdowns, because other states didn't have anywhere near as many lockdowns as Melbourne, as Victoria.
Yeah, look, that's I actually never thought about it like that. It is possible. I mean, I think maybe they wanted, if anything, I think it was a test case to see how quickly and how effectively you can destroy the psyche of people. Because I mean, Melbourne was like the beating heart of like Australian cultural life. I mean, Melbourne
Yes.
was the original capital before there was Canberra, right? I mean, Melbourne has
Yeah.
like a significant, like, meaning, like, in the Australian context, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's like almost like a decapitation strike. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
you go straight for like the most like symbol, right? You know what I mean? So maybe it's also just a simple matter of like, well, obviously, like, you had Dan Andrews in Victoria, and like the guy was, quite a psycho. But I think, I mean, I think we say about that, but I mean, WA had it pretty bad as well. Like they had it pretty bad. I mean, as
No,
bad as
they didn't
Dan
have our
Andrews did.
lockdowns though. They just locked up the states.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's true. That's a fair point. So yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a test, and I mean, I haven't been in Melbourne pretty much since the pandemic started, but I mean, from everything that I hear, the city hasn't recovered and probably won't recover, and it's a shadow of its former
No.
self. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
dying actually, I think. It's a very. I'm noticing a lot of people are coming back after going overseas, especially to America and Europe and places, and they come back and saying, or Asia even, they're saying everyone's happy, everyone's getting on, everyone's chatting, everyone's this. You come to Australia, everyone's silent. I think the country is suffering from PTSD, and they
100%.
have, and no one's dealt with it, and it doesn't matter whether you took it, whether you didn't take it. We basically got assaulted by our own people, and they just mocked us and condescendingly told it, basically disregarded us. But everything's changed, and I think we're still profoundly affected by it. We're just not sure what to do at the moment. Now we've got digital ID heading our way.
So Australia really has become, it's like the official testing ground now, right? A lot of the stuff that they rolled out later initially was done in Israel. I mean, Israel was the testing ground for like the vaccination. They were the testing ground for the vaccine mandates. They were like the testing ground for a lot of that. And Israel is obviously well and truly cooked now. Like, I mean, I spent half my life in that country, so I'm very, very familiar with what's going on there. So it's kind of, okay, well, let's see where else we're going to go, right? So it's kind of like Australia and Canada, very, very similar population, I think, culturally, historically as well, like, and also like, they never been like invaded. They're both like, the British Commonwealth, all that sort of stuff, so it was very, kind of like, it was kind of to see, okay, well, what we can do and how people will take it. Now, I don't know what's happening in Canada on the ground right now in terms of people's psyche, but in Australia, like, I mean, even the normies, even the people who've taken like, 5 shots, it's like they walk around and they understand something very, very bad has happened, like something genuinely terrible and horrific has happened, but they don't quite understand what, or they maybe understand and they're trying to suppress that. So it is definitely PTSD. I think calling it PTSD is very, very accurate. And look, I mean, first of all, I think, like, where do we move from here? I think, first of all, we need to understand 2 things. We need to understand what was done to us and that it is still happening now. And what we've seen so far during the pandemic, that was just a warm-up, right? Because getting the jab into people's arms, that was important. But the digital ID stuff is by orders of magnitude important, because the digital ID is the end game. That is the victory, right? That is like, the march on Berlin, right? That is it. That's blowing up the Reichstag. That once they do that, that's it, game over, right? So first of all, so we need to understand what's happening. We need to understand that the attack that is happening now is a lot more significant, and it is in a lot more advanced stages than we imagine, right? We think it's like kind of this some amorphic thing, but I've said it in several other interviews, but all the infrastructure that's required, it's not like under planning, test, done, it's ready, go. Press a button, you can have a digital ID tomorrow that is tied to everything with social credit score, with like, if you don't have a sufficient credit score, you can't board public transport, you can't go into a supermarket, and you can't like, you can't get a rental property. Like tomorrow, it is ready.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So first of all, people need to understand what was done to us. People need to understand the gravity of our situation, and people need to understand that everything that we have done so far has not worked. It has not achieved results, right? And not only we have not kept our focus, we've become even more scattered, right? Because after obviously the Canadian Freedom Convoy, and that inspired others in Australia and other places as well, I think the enemy realized, okay, this can potentially be a threat, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to deploy the oldest trick in the book, literally the oldest trick in the book, which is divide and conquer, right? And then you got Russia, Ukraine. And okay, pick a side. Who's the good side? Who's the bad side? Who's the good side? Who's the aggressor? Who's that? Who's that? And I mean, think about it. I mean, this is kind of like, it's ridiculous. It's like both Slavic people, like, same religion, same heritage, like they speak the freaking same language almost, right? So, I mean, it's insane that they were even able to do that, but they were able to do that. And people were kind of thought, okay, well, we got to pick a side, like the Ukrainians are the Nazis, or like, the Russians are the aggressors, blah, 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 whatever. But it kind of like, faded away, right? It didn't really it wasn't like people were not like as obsessed about it as the enemy needed them to be, right? So okay, say, okay, all right, that didn't work. We need something with a little bit more, oomph, with a little bit more punch. All right, what are we gonna do? We're gonna go for the sure thing. The sure thing is October 7th.
Yeah,
that was the sure thing, and we can discuss a whole. I mean, that's a whole podcast, what actually happened in October 7th, and obviously there's no doubt
we had Leon on. So Leon is from Balaclava, is Hasidic Jew, but he was on our side, and he used to do a podcast every Thursday night on Cafe Lockdown. He's having a break now. He got hold of a security guard, or someone who'd just got out of the Israeli army, but he'd been a border guard in his tenure with the army. And he said it couldn't have happened. He said a sparrow lands on a handrail, it's got an Apache helicopter up its ass. There's no way they could have come in for 6 hours and the Israeli army didn't react. This is not possible. So we did that really early on.
I lived half my
What's
life in
that?
Israel, and I lived half my life in Israel. Like, I'm fluent in Hebrew. I
Yeah.
served in the IDF, right? I was on the border with Lebanon in when was it? 1995 or 6 or whatever, right? Like,
Right.
actually on the border with Lebanon, right? And I remember, like, I was like in the like the guard post for, like, I was in the Air Force, the anti-aircraft brigade. But anyway, so I was like in the guard post, like, to at the front of the base, right? And we have, like, we can hear on radio, like, the everything that's happening in the sector, like, as far as, like, the military communication network, right? And there was like basically an alert on the border fence, like one of the sensors was triggered, right? And that was like the middle of the night, I think like 3 a.m. or something like that. And there were two like rapid response teams, like two, right? So there's like elite soldiers that their entire job is like to respond to like alerts on the fence. Two of them, so that's a total of a team of 6, right? They were there within 7 minutes, right? And basically what they found was a roasted rat that triggered, like, that was it. But that's normally how it works. And there were like people who
Yeah.
like were serving in the sector, like, you would have like, cockroaches approaching the fence, and like, people will like, jump. I mean, it makes no sense. Like, it makes no sense. That we
Yeah.
can do a whole podcast about it and talk about it for 5
Yeah, I
hours.
agree.
And I've
Yeah.
posted a lot of that on my Substack as well. I've done like extensive investigations on October 7th. So there's no doubt that the Israeli side was complicit, without a shadow of a doubt, like without a
Yeah.
shadow of a doubt, right? So what? Well, ultimately, what was the reason, right? The reason was that they needed this distraction. And then obviously, like, Israel responded with this like overwhelming force, started indiscriminate killing of civilians. And then they started, like, the whole thing exploded, right? And then it's the Jews versus the Muslims versus the Christians. And then it, like, all of a sudden, like with Twitter on the mask, it expanded also to like the blacks versus the whites. My race is better, my color is better, my religion is better, and my God is better. And these are people that are supposedly, like, a lot of these people are awake, right? They didn't take the jab, like, they understand what's going on. I mean, that was like, the jab stuff. That was highly sophisticated, military grade, professionally executed, serious shit, right? Serious stuff, right? And they figured this out, right? They managed to, like, overcome that. And then they fall for like the most moronic thing. I mean, you've been to a lot of more rallies than I have, without a shadow of a doubt. You tell me, in any of the rallies that you went to, did anyone care what your religion was, or what color,
No.
like, your skin was, or like,
No.
whether like you worship that God or you worship that God, or whether you had a turban or a yarmulke or whatever? Nobody gave a shit.
Nobody gave a shit. You were
Nobody
just
gave a
there.
shit. What happened? What the fuck? How did we reach this point? That's what drives me crazy. Obviously, it's orchestrated. Like, obviously, it was done. Like, it was done on purpose, right? But we fell for it, and that's like a very low level compared to, like, the mandate psyop and the vaccine.
No,
and COVID
totally
stuff.
agree. Totally agree. I don't
So we
understand.
need
It's
to
same with climate
understand.
change.
Sorry, say again.
The same with climate change. I mean, Bill Gates has just come out, the architect of climate change, really, and said it's not an issue, not a problem for the foreseeable future. And people are still falling for it, even though he said, Fauci came out on 60 Minutes early on. I've shown people the interview. He's saying the masks don't work. He goes, anyone who thinks they work doesn't know anything about masks. There's no way it costs to work. Then he changed his tune and said, oh, we have to wear a mask. But he's there saying clearly it doesn't work. And they look at it and they just blink, and then they just keep. That's the really interesting question.
And a lot of people, like, a lot of people could see through that, right? But I mean, I'm talking about, like, the mandates and how, like, all this psychological operation, like, if you're not taking the jab, you're not doing it for your country, you're not a patriot, you're not a good citizen. That's military grade. Like, I mean, that's serious stuff, right? I mean, that, like, turned, like, family members against each other. I mean, that is serious stuff, right?
And they did it.
So people were able to overcome that. And then we fall for this, like, crap that is obviously manufactured, because it is the oldest trick in the book. And I watch it, like, what the fuck? It's like, it's like all of a sudden, it's like some elite, like, like football player, right? That then plays against a kindergarten kid and loses. Like, what the hell? So,
yeah, that's right.
So we need to understand, okay, so we need to understand what's happening. We need to understand where we are falling for the oldest trick in the book, right? And we need to get our shit together and refocus. That's what we need to do at first. Because if we continue like arguing with each other, oh, it's the Jews, it's the Muslims, it's the this, it's the that. No, it's the migrants, it's the blacks. We have too many blacks, we have too many whites. Look, it's like the same thing with like the virus, no virus. These are all valid discussions. I'm not saying don't have discussions, like, whether we need to have immigration, we need to have immigration at the level that we have now, whether we don't need to have any immigration, whether Australia should become like a Christian white country like it used to be like during white Australia. Fine, have all these discussions, but let's win the war first. Like the enemy is on the fence. Like, guys, come on.
Yeah,
like the enemy's on the fence, and you're arguing with each other who's got the nicer shirt. What the fuck?
That's what's getting to me. That's what's really getting. I had a friend call up today. He's a veteran of the movement, and he said, I don't know what's wrong, Michael. I'm so down. He said, I'm driving along and I'm crying in the car. I'm just crying in my car. And then he said, it's the world. It's the apathy of the people. He said, like you said, the enemy's here. It's this pertinent now. We have to do something now. And there's just apathetic silence, really. I mean, I know there's a few people online calling out, but generally you look around, the people are just, it's like lobotomized Hindu cows. They're just ambling their way through their day, And
now we can't even collaborate, right? Because just for me, I can say, just if I say something like on like the topic of Israel even, oh, you're a Zionist shill, right? Just because of my last name. And people haven't even read any of my work and what I'm actually saying about Israel. I'm far we're not going to get into that, but I'm far from being a Zionist, right? So it's like, but it is moronic. Like we have become we have become morons. And it's
that's right,
I guess one thing that rings really true to me, it's something that I think Bill Cooper said 30 plus years ago, right? Where basically said that to describe how the enemy's frame of mind is, and basically what the way they think of us is basically people who refuse to use their brain will be a stake on the table of those who do by their own consent.
Yes.
So we are food, we are cattle. If we continue to behave like that from their perspective, and maybe to some extent they are right, we deserve what's coming to us because we are morons.
Thank you. That's what I think now. The people are the problem and the solution. And we could sit here banging on all day. They've had 5 years of us feeding them all the truths we can find. We've got esteemed doctors, professors, everyone coming out, like you said, Robert Clancy, all these people coming out, and they just don't want to know. That for some reason, could you conceive that people have thought 9/11 was faked, but it was such a bold undertaking and took so much resources that whoever did it is so powerful that I don't stand a chance against them. So I'm just going to stay silent, pretend I didn't see it, and just get on with my life. And then COVID and everything else that's happened makes them think these people are so powerful, I don't stand a chance. The only real freedom I have is to try endure it, which means doing what they're saying and hope that they go for people like us and that somehow they'll survive. Do you think a lot of people are thinking like this? Because I do not believe that a lot of people are asleep anymore. I believe that people, they might not know exactly what's going on, and none of us really do, but they know something's going on. But even now, because I used to go around town to town interviewing people in the streets, Rosemary Marshall, who does it too, said it's getting harder and harder to get people to talk. People go, they're just erring to silence. And that's the end. Once we all go silent, they can do whatever they want. Just like you said, you act like a sheep, they'll treat you like a sheep.
So I think what you said, I think what you said, you're right. But I would divide those people into two distinct groups. One group are the normies, that even the most brain dead normies, they understand that something unprecedented has happened. They may not even understand what, right? They have no idea, right? But they understand, hey, something really bad happened. It's like you leave the house and you think, oh, you don't leave the stove on or something like that. Something is not right? Something in the back of your mind is kind of niggling. Something is not right. So that's one group. The other group It's people like us who are awake, who understood at the time what was going on, but I call them the surrendered. What do I mean by the surrendered? They understand what happened. They understand everything that has happened. And for various reasons, one of them could be, oh, the enemy is too powerful. There's nothing we can do. We just need to learn and live by them and kind of live our life like under their thumb to the best of our ability, right? Obviously, both of these approaches are nonsensical because both of these approaches will get you killed eventually, right?
That's right.
So,
That's
so,
right.
so,
And enslave your children.
Ultimately, let's think about it rationally. I mean, we're talking about like, okay, in pure number terms, even, right? Like, how many are there of them and how many are there of us? If we get our shit together and unite, right, and stop fighting over nonsense, like we've been now for, I don't know, since October 7, really, in earnest, right? We can crush them like that, like a worm. You know, it's like they are actually, we are the Goliath and they are the David, but we're scared of the David.
Yeah, that's right.
We can literally crush them. Like, it is our world. Like, we need to understand what gives them the power, right? Two things give them the power. First of all, our participation and consent. And the second thing is the financial system that they control and is based on fraud. That's it. There's no mystery here. Like, you know, they're not like put some sophisticated spell on us or like, you know, something like, you know, black magic or whatever, voodoo. No. We agree to that.
Yeah.
So I would say, look, I mean, we should have had this conversation when you interviewed Tabitha, which she said exactly this. Guys, I mean, you want to go and demonstrate by all means and do your protest, but this is not a revolution, right? You go and march and carry your placards, maybe get roughed up a little bit by the police, and then go to your home till the next time. Great, but I mean that doesn't work. It has never worked. It is something that allow you to do so that, you know, you can blow off a little bit of steam, right? And you don't grab your pitchfork and you know, storm parliament, right? So, same thing happened in the UK with that, like, you know, they had their protest for the digital ID. 3 million people signed the petition. And what did the government say in response? Basically, screw you. We're going to do whatever we want. Yeah. Who are you to tell us what to do?
Yeah, that's right. That's what. Well, look, I think in another way, though, to be honest, whatever is planned against us has been a long time in the planning. I don't know how long, but a long time. And they've made a few mistakes. I think the shooting at the shrine was a mistake. I think Australia reacted, that caused the epic, everybody coming to Canberra and the convoy to Canberra, as well as the Canadians. But they never did it after that. They always backed off after that. The cops never roughed us up after the shooting at the shrine. I think they realized they went too far. Rukshan filmed it. It was bad press. No matter how much they turned it, the visuals were bad. And so I think they do make mistakes, but it's been years in the planning where us, like you said, you didn't wake up for the first year. Literally the first 6 months I didn't, or the first few months I didn't either. I was busy working, writing. Just bit by bit, I suddenly started thinking, this doesn't make sense. It stinks. Whichever way I turn it, it smells. But we organically rose up. And we would just, I remember reading The Power and the Powerless by Václav Havel. He gave me the inspiration to start Cafe Lockdown. He was the Czechoslovakian Prime Minister and a freedom fighter and playwright. I was reading From Dictatorship to Democracy, which by Gene, someone on the Einstein website, which was, I read that several times. I just can't remember his second name. And so I was sort of reading and consuming all this material and watching what was happening outside my window. But we were still organic. We didn't know. Everyone had different ideas. And so I think we just started ticking off every box we could. Some people did common law. Some people went after the Constitution. Some people went after pedophiles, which I thought we should have won the war first. But anyway, they wanted to do that. Some went... and some of us went to the protests. A lot of us went to the protests, but at the protests, there was all different things we were protesting against. I remember my daughter said that. She never went to one. She looked at one. She said, I can't tell you what you're actually protesting against because everyone's got a different agenda. So we were basically making it up. But it's like having an army that's a well-established army with an actual plan against this rebel that just sort of came up, and that's when we went into politics. What we haven't done is what you're doing now, is we haven't stopped and assessed what we've done, what worked, what didn't, and figured out what are we trying to achieve? What is achievable? Can we do it with our limited resources? We don't have guns. We don't have the populace behind us.
We don't need guns. No, I don't think so. Here's the thing. If there's anything actually that, like, one response that the other side does want us to take, right, is to, like, literally, like, take guns and, like, storm power.
Oh yeah, I agree.
For two reasons. First of all, it will turn the normies against us, because they will vindicate that we're, like, crazy sovereign citizens and dangerous terrorists or whatever, right? What Azio is saying, right? And it will also obviously justify, like, locking us up and shooting us because we're terrorists, right? So that it's not necessary. If anything, okay. So even, like, what Tabitha said, like, in that interview, like, they didn't win because they shot at the cops, right? They won because the cops at some point realized that they're on the wrong side and they stopped doing it, right? Now, that could still happen, but unfortunately I'm not optimistic in Australia, because I think the people within police and military who could have realized that and could have, like, turned to the, like, the right side, they're probably no longer in the force, right? They're no longer in uniform for various reasons, primarily because they probably didn't take the job themselves, right? So I don't think we can rely on that. So the people that are still within those, like, establishments, right, the enforcers, they either believe in that, or they need the paycheck, or they're just psychopaths. So like, that's not going to happen, right? So that's not going to happen. So the Romanian example, unfortunately, is not going to happen. It is also, on the flip side, it's also not very likely that they will, at least for now, be ordered to shoot into the crowd, unless, we grab the guns and, like, storm parliament, right? So that's not going to happen. But they're going to continue with their agenda, right? So the way that we can stop the agenda, like, there's that famous, put your bodies on the machines, and you know what I'm talking about? Let me see if I can find that. 1 second. I think I have it, actually. 1 second.
When I was listening to the Romanian thing, because I've talked to a lot of other people about it, the protest, the revolution actually started in Poland and spread across, Oh, is this it?
This one, Mario Savio. Do you know that one?
No.
You've never heard that one? That's a famous one. All right. So that was, okay, have a look.
Tried to get something more liberal out of the regents in his telephone conversations. Why didn't he make some public statement to that effect? And the answer we received from a well-meaning liberal was the following. He said, would you ever imagine the manager of a firm making a statement publicly in opposition to his board of directors? That's the answer. I ask you to consider, if this is a firm, and if the board of regents are the board of directors, and if President Kerr, in fact, is the manager, and I tell you something, the faculty are a bunch of employees, and we're raw material. But we're a bunch of raw material that don't mean to have any process upon us, don't mean to be made into any product, don't mean to end up being bought by some clients of the university, be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or you can be. When the operation of the machine becomes so odious, it's just so sick and hard that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. You've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from.
That time is now, right? That time is now.
Welcome to Uncommon College. I'm Peter.
Oh, sorry.
Be sure to follow.
Yeah. So that time is now. That's what we need to understand, right? So what I'm trying to say by that is, look, if we came to this realization when Tabitha was talking about it in late 2022, maybe we could have avoided most of the collateral damage. But we didn't. And that means that there will be some collateral damage. And what do I mean by collateral damage? if we collapse the structures as they are now, like, be the financial system, for example, like, if like the intention is to actually like collapse the financial system, obviously we don't know what's going to happen next. Like, we don't have a plan for like, the day after, and there could be anarchy, and by it, in anarchy, people do get hurt, unfortunately.
I don't think there's any way to get through this without pain. That's obvious. Whatever's going to happen, there's pain in front of us, whether it's pain from starvation, whether it's pain from loss of your financial assets, whether it's pain through incarceration of dissenters. I mean, the WHO is basically saying that's what they're going to do. They're going to round anyone who dissents up. I remember one of the police officers, this is a really important comment. I've said it before on the show, but Craig Backman, who was a police officer who quit because with integrity to join us. And he used to speak to the police officers all the time to try and get them to join us. And one of them actually said to him, a high-ranking sergeant or something, said, "Listen, Craig, you don't get it. We're moving into a future with oppressors and the oppressed. Better to be an oppressor." So this man had already made up his mind. He's looked at that. That's what I'm saying. I never thought people were asleep ever. I thought most people just woke up. Oh, tyranny's turned up. Okay, what do I do to get a good job? What do I do to stay out of trouble? They just played the game. The game changed. And yesterday I was playing drafts. Now I'm playing chess, And
what did Tabitha say? You cannot comply your way out of tyranny. It never gets better. It only gets worse. Like, and literally 4,000 years of human history have proven that definitively.
Yeah. Yeah, but the only way to go against it is to put yourself in harm's way. You need courage. And people do not have courage. They don't have it. They have it when there's no other option open to them. Once they're in a corner, it's like a rat. You get a rat in a corner, you might be 20 times his size, but you get a rat in a corner, once they realize they've got no other options, they'll attack you. But it's the last option before death, I've seen that. I've seen that happen when I used to work in dog pounds. When I was a kid, we used to have to catch rats, and that's what they would do. They would run and run and run and run away until you cornered them, and then they jump on you, So there's, and I think this is, I remember reading, just to say this is how people are. I don't know, it was a scientific experiment or a study into plane crashes to how people died in plane crashes. Did they die when the plane crashed? But what happened in the study was they interviewed all these people who survived plane crashes, and the people who survived said the plane crashed and they got up and they got out. But when they were getting out, they looked around and other people were just sitting there looking at them, not doing anything. Rows and rows of people just looking at them, not racing to get out, just looking at them, and they died. So they're alive, they're not injured, they can get up, but they just sit there. So maybe this is something in us. Maybe we're a herd animal, and we're like, just theorizing. If you talk to dairy farmers talk about cows, and they say in a cow you have a leader. If you've got a herd of cows, say 100 cows, there's a leader. And then there'll be ones around the leader. Then there'll be isolated ones who don't want to be followed. That's us. There'll be a few, they stay away. And basically it's a hierarchical system. And within it, there's all these different cows that suit certain positions, whatever they are. A scout, these are the ones that go first. And who's to know that humanity isn't like that? Who's to know that humanity, there are leaders, natural-born leaders. We all know natural-born leaders. And basically, there are a group of people, a big group of people, and it's just not in their makeup to go up against the chief. Their job is to do whatever it takes to keep the community going. And if they have to endure pain and hardship and tyranny like you guys did in the USSR, they'll do it. I mean, not everyone in the USSR raised up. Lots of people died, but lots of people survived. And the people I've interviewed from the Eastern Bloc said most of their parents just complied. They said, what can we do? They just got on with it, And I see Australians doing the same thing. I actually don't believe that the USSR, communism, China. I don't believe a communist state is built with the barrel of the gun. It's built with the compliance, the silent compliance of the people that they're oppressing, and they just do it. They just sit there watching the bars go up and go, okay, this is it now. Now, I don't know if I'm right, but this is what I
think
see.
you're very
I
right.
hear it in people, you know.
I think you're very right. But here is the thing, like, you know, I mean, saying that, like, you know, USSR and all this sort of stuff, but like, you know, one of the most, like, you know, famous, like, you know, dissidents, like, I think ever, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn, right? I mean, you know, right? So here's what he said, like, you know, this is just actually, this is from a video, like, you know, it's a lecture that Bill Cooper gave in 1996, but I'm not going to play him. I'm going to play actually the lady that is introducing him, right? And quoting Solzhenitsyn, and hear what he has to say. And that, like, you know, obviously he went to a gulag, right? I mean, he like, you know, he sacrificed everything, right? So let's have a look. All right. So let's see what, like, you know, what he actually had to say.
Told me about this is from Solzhenitsyn, and this is one of the reasons I think we're all here, and we kind of have to remind ourselves why we're doing this. He says, and how we burned in the cabin later thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family? Or during periods of mass arrests, as for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, paling with terror at every bang on the downstairs door and every step on the staircase, but had understood that they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, whatever else was on hand. After all, you knew ahead of time that those boot camps were out at night for no good purpose. But we didn't love freedom enough. That's what makes this country great. It's not diversity, it's freedom.
Yeah.
So we need to understand.
I just say broke up a bit, but is that the quote? I couldn't quite hear it. Is that the quote where he said he just gave in, but he wished he'd actually fought?
That's right.
When the police came to get him, he wished he'd actually fought and taken 1 or 2 out, because if everybody did that, the police would back off.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But basically, like, you know, the enforcers, whenever they leave the house to go to work every day, they have to say goodbye to their family because they're not sure that they'll be back.
Yeah.
Right. Now that's extreme, but obviously, like, you know, the situation, like, you know, I think that was, like, you know, during Stalin, or I think it was even before Stalin, like, you know, the late, like, years of Lenin. So obviously, I mean, I was back, I know, I mean, literally going house to house and like taking people to the gulag. We're not there yet, but we might be, right? But I mean, the thing is that, like, you know, I mean, we could have been here by now, I think, right? But all this nonsense that started, especially after October 7, and now, like, I mean, you go on Twitter and it is a cesspool. It's like disgusting. I mean, half of the so-called accounts, they're not even human. I'm fairly sure of that. But I mean, it's just disgusting. It's like everyone against everyone. And it's all like supposed to be like people, a lot of them that, like, you know, they have in their profile or in their, like, you know, header image, no to the jab, no to the WWIII, like, you know, hang Bill Gates, whatever. Mate, really? Okay, right. And then, okay, well, then what? And then after October 7, like, you know, you had in the Opera House, you had, like, you know, gas the Jews, or, like, you know, or then you had, like, you know, deport the Muslims, or you had this, or you had that. And a lot of these people are supposedly awake. Right? A lot of these people in, like, you know, I mean, I'm not saying, again, all this issue, like, you know, multiculturalism and, like, you know, social cohesion, it's all important. I'm not saying, like, I'm not like, you know, I'm not downplaying that. But is that the most important thing right now? Is that, like, you know, arguing over that, is that what's going to help us win? Let's win first, and then we decide if we want to have immigration, we don't want to have immigration. Christianity is better, Judaism is better, I don't know, like, you know, Buddhism is better, like, you know, whatever. You know what I mean? I mean, come on, guys.
Can I put something to you? Just to, before I made a living in the theatre, my last job for the Man was a tram driver. I worked in a depot with about 150 guys. Now, a lot of them were incredibly wealthy. They've been doing 6 days a week, not double shifts, but overtime for years. And they've accrued, because they don't do anything else, they've accrued wealth. And the contract, it was run by a Canadian company then, and it was very well run. the staff were very happy, the drivers were very happy. It was a really great place to work. Then the government would not give the Canadians the contract. They gave it to a French company, KDR. Now, KDR came in and gutted the place, got rid of all the larrikins, and it was a shadow of its former self. But before they took the contract, I remember in the depot saying, why are you so concerned about the contract? Why don't we take it together? Why don't we get together as a group? You're all clever. Most of you have had businesses. Some of you have been bank managers. Why don't you get together as a group? We've all got this money, and just why don't we run it as a people's collective? You know what I mean? We're all from Melbourne. We want the job to go well. We want to, it'd probably be spectacular because everyone would be invested. They just laughed like it was insane, just absolutely insane. I might have just said, why don't we go to take a tram to Mars? They just laughed. Anyway, the contract got taken over by KDR. A lot of the people who were laughing lost their jobs because they were larrikins in this. And so they lost. But what there was a thing in them. I want someone else to take responsibility for all the big things. I just want to sit behind my tram and drive and go home. I don't want any more responsibility. I don't want the responsibility of freedom. If I have the responsibility of freedom and I take over the government, I'm going to have to do something. And I just want to watch TV and whinge. I want to watch the footy. I want to do this. I don't want it. And so this is what I'm seeing is the real problem here from the beginning is the people. And all these things I've read, from dictatorship to democracy, they only say 10%. You get initial 10% that stand up and rally against oppression. And their job is to get the next 10% who are not as brave as them, but almost, to join them. That's where I think we failed. We did not embolden those brothers and sisters who wanted to join us who weren't brave enough. So to me, we were at Epic. I think we were between 500 and 1 million people at Epic, but I think more between 500,000, 700,000, I reckon. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And when we were doing the trial for Paul, we saw all these visuals that the police had of the march. There was far more than 10,000. There was a huge amount of people, and all the cops said there was a huge amount. That number now has gone. If you put Hoodie's show together, my show, not my show, but Hoodie's show together, Marie Z is a big following. You put all these shows together, you don't even come within view of 1 million people. There's, we've got this small group. So we've lost all those people, and we're trying to wake other people up who would have never had the courage to join us. But we've already lost the soldiers who actually drove from all over Australia in their own volition to join us. I think there's getting back to what you're saying is basic rudimentary stuff. Build a power base. Like, you're Jewish. I've been saying now for years, we need to be like the Jews. And what I mean by that is initially people were saying, we've got to put the Aborigines in charge. The Aborigines, the great majority of them live off the government. That's just the truth. The Jews own the government. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? The lobbyists is this. They're very powerful. Both oppressed people. One continues to be oppressed. One is a very powerful group. And I think one of the things they do is commerce amongst each other, business. It's just things. So they've got a power base. We've been trying to do that. We don't do that. There's no commerce goes amongst us. Like, you're an IT guy. I don't know where you live, but if you do, let's say you lived in Tamworth. Why doesn't every freedom person in Tamworth go to you for IT? It's just done. He's in the community. That's what we do. And bit by bit, we grow some wealth behind us, so we have some power, instead of just being these few individuals that just get together and, try our things. These are things that I think we need to do moving forward. And with a long term, even setting up businesses, I've been saying op shops, because everyone hates the op shops. They rip them off. Why don't we set up our own op shops? Why don't we set up Drake's is a supermarket in South Australia. He never mandated his staff. He has a huge loyal following because he didn't do that. So why aren't we setting up businesses? There's, just actually looking after each other, realizing, look, this mob is never going to join us. So and that's why I've been pushing culture, literature. If you go to the Cafe Lockdown, we're setting up books there, banned books, our literature, our music, everything to actually give us something. Because people hate this, because I know there's a lot of stuff against the Jews at the moment, but the Jews have a culture they hold on to. Because if you've got a culture to hold on to, you've got an identity. You've got an identity, you've got the will to fight to defend it. Australia, one thing COVID did, which they did it brilliantly, is they got rid of our culture. And I've interviewed young people who tell me we don't have a culture. We're just a load of young people on a rock doing shit. You know what I mean? Our culture is gone. How can you fight for it if you don't even know who the fuck you are?
Yeah. Look, I've heard you say that before, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think, like, my place, for example, I mean, that's very much their ethos as well, and I think it's great. The problem that I have, though, is the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
So everything that you're saying is a long
Takes time.
play, right? So
Yeah, it
you're
is.
talking about reconstruction in a post-war world after the war has been won and the enemy has been overwhelmingly and crushingly defeated.
I disagree with you with that.
Okay.
I disagree with that. I think it is like the slaves, even though they were liberated in America in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, they were still an oppressed people. But their culture escaped through jazz, through rock and roll, through anything else. We have to we have to basically cement our identity as a new group. Maybe even the last free human beings. Who knows who we are? We're around the world. We think the same. We get together. We talk like this. We're something significant. And I think if we were in a community that was getting really strong, had commerce going, had culture going, had new music coming up, and I've been pushing this for 2 years now, but if it did, then they, like moths to a flame, would go, I'm really lonely here. I don't feel I've got anything. I can't speak. But look at this mob. Look how they talk. They argue,
Yeah.
they get on, they disagree. I want to be a part of that. And so I know it's long term, but they would come to us. Short term, I don't think there's anything we can do. Because we just don't have the
So here's
movement.
the thing. Here's something that I think, for me, an important lesson that I learned from COVID, and I think it's very, very relevant now as well. Numbers do matter. The numbers matter. And what do I mean by numbers? If we can't get numbers on our side within a predetermined time frame, right? And then as a result, those people make the wrong choice or make no choice at all, their actions will also have implications for us, right? So, for example, with the digital ID, that is a perfect example, and I discussed that in a previous interview. I think maybe even with Robin, I mentioned that. So if we can get a certain percentage of refusal, and the refusal is only 20% or even 30%, which means 70% do take that means that they can move to the next stage of mandating that and then locking up 30% out of society and isolating you, and you're going to be living like the savages in A Brave New World, and then eventually, they're going to send the drones and finish you off because your mere existence is a threat to them. This is not like a culture war. This is an actual war.
Yeah.
This is a war, no holds barred, right? And only one side will remain standing, right?
Yeah.
So we everything that you're saying, I don't disagree with that. Even people who talk about parallel, okay, well, something something. Here's how do you translate it to something practical in the immediate term, in my opinion. Here's just something idea that I'm thinking out loud. Yeah, you say, okay, there's all these people who think like us and we should have a commerce like us and so on. Okay, well, all of us as a community, right? We move to a particular part of Australia. I don't know. I think North Queensland probably would be a good place, right? Isolate ourselves there and secede. Put a border and say we're independent.
That has happened before.
And then, okay, well, is the Australian Defence Force going to come in and try and kill us? Well, hey, we may have to defend the territory if that's the case, but that's where we are, right? So if we can't get the people on board, we have to protect ourselves, not from the regime, but from the inaction of the other people, because that will have implications for us, right?
Yeah.
If we had refusal of 50% during the mandate or 60% during the mandate, the whole thing would have been over in a week, and that's it, and
Yeah.
game over.
If
Right?
the police had refused to shoot, to brutalize protesters, if the police had turned around and said, I'm not going to shoot a rubber bullet at a peaceful protester, if the police had done that, Dan Andrews couldn't have done anything he did. The only reason he got away was Vic Police was on his side, doing whatever he wanted to, turning up, brutalizing people. We know all this. We've spoken to the bus drivers who were driving the police around to the protests. He said they had police officers walking up the middle of the bus going, come on, we're going to crack some heads. We're going to teach, really firing them up so that they would be brutal, you know, because they obviously didn't want to be brutal. You know, they just wanted to be this. But this is how they were. And that's, and yeah, it's sorry, that's probably a bit off the track. I agree with you with places to go. I've met some people who've actually done that. They've set up.
But as a collective,
properties.
as a community,
Oh, yeah, no,
like, you know, the
yeah.
people who are saying that, okay, well, let's move to Thailand and, like, you know, defend us, like that way we escape from the digital ID. Or I saw the other day a story about some, like, you know, Australian family actually, right? Where I think, like, they have a child, she's 14 years old and she's an influencer, right? So, like, she makes money online from being an influencer, whatever, right? So because of that, like, you know, social media ban, and obviously she's 14, she won't be able to do her online work. So they moved, they left Australia and they moved. And where did they move? They moved to the UK.
Oh, is that what they did? I saw that interview. So they moved to the UK.
I mean, this is like, sorry. I mean, if any of that family members are watching, but this is kind of retarded, guys.
Have you heard of the black sheep paradox?
No.
Okay. One of the reasons we didn't comply initially when the COVID thing came out is, and if you talk to a lot of people in our movement, they all claim this. We were black sheep, able to think for ourselves. We don't need to go with the herd. We're okay standing alone. And that's kind of what created us. We were this black sheep.
Yep.
Trouble with black sheep, they don't do herds because they're black sheep. They don't work well with others. And I think this is what our movement has suffered from. Somebody comes up with an idea. I want to work this idea. You're in my place. My place says, we're not going to do that. You're like, well, I'm going to do it. And then suddenly that town has 2 my places or 2 stand in the parks. This has happened all across Australia. And this is what was happening all the time. I don't even think it's a bad thing. I think these are good people. But there's this paradox at the core of us. And I that's why I have been thinking maybe commerce is the way, and I do think long term now. I have to admit, I don't think we can stop digital ID coming in or anything else. I really don't, because there's just too many people who are just going to do it. I'd love to wake up in the morning and find out 70% of Australians said F off. Because when they recently, a few years ago, they brought out a digital ID for CEOs, and it was $1 million fine if you didn't have it. You remember that? It was at the start of
director. Yeah, it was the director ID. Yeah.
They stopped that and they dropped it. You know why? Because CEOs from around the country told them to F off. They wouldn't do it. Only a tiny percentage did it. The rest told them to go jump. And they kept that quiet. They never said that in the media. They never said that anywhere. So digital ID was pushed onto directors, and the directors told them to go jump, and they did. They went away. Australians could do the same. Instead of thinking, how are we going to cope for years and what's it going to mean? You just got to say no. You just got to have a huge percentage to say no.
That's true about everything from the beginning. Yeah. Here's the thing, Michael. Here's the thing. Yes, what you're saying, I don't think we can stop that. I don't think we can stop that with the current approach that we're taking, right? And unfortunately, we have wasted time when we fought amongst ourselves, and we are in a pretty dire predicament because we did a lot of stupid things, right? But, okay, so we can still turn it around, but we need to start being aggressive and potentially, like, resort to actions that some people may think are unsavory. And what do I mean by that? I mean by PSYOPs, extensive, very, very aggressive psyops against the normies, right?
Like what?
And okay,
Can you give
so
us an
there is
example?
the problem with digital ID that a normie doesn't understand what it means, and on the face of it, it sounds very convenient. But if you take that and flip it on its head and say, if you take a digital ID and your biometrics data is stored online, and that's nothing that I'm saying is actually a lie, by the way, right?
No.
Everything you've ever worked for will be stolen. Why? Because your digital ID will be hacked, your identity will be taken, your bank account will be emptied, your super account will be emptied, and the digital record of your land title will be erased or modified. So you will be homeless, penniless, and without any super, living on the streets. And none of what I'm saying is a lie or an exaggeration, right? I can provide examples, and I've written articles about it, where all of that has happened even without a digital ID. Now take that with the digital ID, and that's amplified by 1,000,000. So what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is, we cannot, at this point, it's too late to do the rational thought to explain, look, yeah, it's social credit score, they'll be able to control all this. Yeah, all right, okay, mate, yeah, sure, I've got a footy game to go to, right? Nah, that's not going to work. But we can say, if all your data is like that, if your biometric data, if your entire biometric representation, your retina scan, your fingerprint, right, is online, right, as a digital file, digital representation, and someone takes that, they are you. And in a world where everything is connected to that, everything you have is theirs. And none of what I'm saying is a lie, but I'm presenting it in an emotional way to trigger an emotional response. And the emotional response that I'm after is fear, and ideally sheer terror. Because if we did the same thing before the vaccine started rolling out, and we communicated to people, if you take that, you will die. Forget about hasn't been tested, Fauci evil, that. No. If you take this, you will die. This is death, right?
I have to say though,
we may have had a higher percentage of refusal.
can I just butt in there? I interviewed a woman, right, in Queensland, I think, or New South Wales. AstraZeneca killed her husband. Her last words to him, and he didn't want to take it, his last words to her on his deathbed was, AstraZeneca got me, baby. AstraZeneca got me. 2 weeks later, she went and got the vaccination. Same one, because she wanted to go on a cruise.
Jesus.
And I'm sorry, but that's only one of several stories like that. There was another young man in Kalgoorlie. This was a horrific story. He died there from the jab. And his brother had to identify the body, and he did. And his parents came from Adelaide to try, look after the body and do this. While they were there, their other son, the son who identified the body, he took the same jab because he wanted to do karate lessons and ended up paralyzed. I've got another father from Bendigo who interviewed me, who I did an interview with. He has 5 children in their 20s. 3 of them have myocarditis from different batches, and they were just getting sick. They're on pacemakers for the rest of their life. They're in their early 20s, and it happened over time. So they kept sending their kids back. They didn't say, look, one kid's got it, I'm not going back. There's another girl in Perth, another woman who had 3 identical triplets, very rare, 3 identical young males. The first one got myocarditis, and the doctor said it won't happen to the others. So she took them down anyway. Now they've all got it. Different things. You would think that knowing you could die would stop. But I've talked to people who sat there in the house and said, listen, one of us has to keep the mortgage going. I'm going to take it. If I die, you look after the kids and my super. They actually made a choice to take it knowing it could kill them to support the family. Now, I've done these interviews, man. It's quite profound. When that woman told me she took it to go on a cruise, I remember just looking at her thinking, I just couldn't comprehend it, because it was just like, seriously? And yeah, but there was pictures of her on the cruise all around the house. So obviously, you know, she was spending his money.
So ask
Anyway,
them if she killed her husband and she went and got a jab so she can go on a cruise.
yeah.
I don't know what to say. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you left me speechless.
This is
And
what
that,
I'm
that
dealing with.
doesn't
We're
happen.
dealing with two species of humans. One
Yeah.
who reacts logically, and that's why we get on. Yeah, that's what I do. I get that. Okay, that's a different point, but I still get your point. Then there's this other mob. I don't get them. I don't get them. We've had a lot of people die in this country, and we've had more people who are being seriously injured, and their families say nothing. I've got a friend, an actor. His son was going to be a basketball player, a professional basketball player. Now he's a cripple with myocarditis. He had one day where he got really angry in the hospital, yelling at doctors, "Is this the jab? Is this the jab?" Then he says, he told me then, he never says anything about it now. Just gets on with his life. He's even done ads to support heart medication. And he just gets on. It's like, oh, well, it's just this. His son was a sacrifice almost. And he's still taking the jab himself. We're not
I don't know, Michael.
dealing.
I don't know what to say. Maybe
We're not dealing with logical times. We're in illogical times.
but
The
I'm not
world's
going for
upside
logical.
down.
I'm going for an emotional response. That's the
No, I
idea.
know,
I
but
don't
even
want logic.
emotional, there's no even emotion has logic to it usually. You know, if you're watching a film like, say, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, one of the most powerful films ever made. You know, the
Yeah.
Indian kills Jack. Now you get an emotional response to him killing Jack, and then you see Jack, he's off with the fairies. You get an emotional response to that because he was such a vibrant human being. The Indian kills him, then rips up the thing, throws it out the window, and it's all very emotional, but it's logically emotional. It's worked your way up to it's this. It's worked your way up to through the narrative of the story. Now things don't make logical sense. Another thing, these are the things that have floored me through being on the road talking to people. A funeral director in a tiny town. And sorry to everyone who's heard this before. The funeral parlor has been busier than ever in its 50 years of existence. They've never had so many funerals in this tiny town. Everybody in this town has been affected by the amount of deaths. And I said to this lovely funeral director, has anyone in these funerals come up to you and says, why is everybody dying? She said, no. They just come to the funeral, they stay silent, they just go through like it's an everyday event, and they go back to their lives. No one says a word. And so this is something that we're dealing with that I do not comprehend. I actually wonder if people have been affected by the jab or that they're in a deep survival instinct, and the survival instinct basically tells them, no matter what, say nothing. I see nothing. And I don't know, but that's the mystery for me is, yeah. And I see the truth bouncing off their heads like a perfect example. One of the most powerful moments in the last 5 years, that the Forest of the Fallen has been very powerful. And there was a group of us standing outside the ABC in Ballarat, I think, Ballarat or Bendigo. I think it was Ballarat. And people could walk past, and people were holding like lots of them like this. And we sat there silently. People could read them if they want. These two tradies walked past, a young apprentice and an older guy about my age. And he just stormed past like this. And I asked him, said, mate, would you like to know what it's about? Nah, come on, mate. Look, they're standing there. You're an Australian. We're allowed to protest. And just a minute, 1 minute. Oh, 1 minute, 1 minute. They're about all the people that died there. As I was telling it to him, he's got a tear coming down. And then he went, is that it? Enough? And then he walked off. So inside him, he was being moved by it, but he didn't want to be a part of it for whatever reason. Whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, if
Look,
if that's the case, and digital ID does, like, you know, it does roll out, then I think really the only option is like literally like everyone who's on that like normal half or whatever part of the population, we unite, grab a territory somewhere in Australia and secede and be ready to defend it if, like, you know, if the Commonwealth tries and recapture it. I'm not joking. Like this will be it.
Yeah, I hear. Except we don't
We
have any
will
weapons.
have nothing left. So it's basically will be us against the Commonwealth, whatever we want to call ourselves.
I don't know. You know, to me, and that might work. To me, I actually think we've got to go long term because we have one great thing in our favor that the other side can never remove from us. What the people are being sold now is a future that is not conducive to the human soul. It just is not. And so if we can live, like I posted a picture of me and Kelly semi-nude the other day. I'm saying we're living, we're alive, we're in love, we're alive, we're going to have fun, we're going to live. If you guys are going to take us into the abyss, then we're going to go into the abyss dancing and milking every moment of life we can. And if as a group we were doing that, and that's what I'm saying, we've got commerce, we've got culture, we've got literature, which is really important. And culture, as a Jewish person, the Jews are huge with culture. If we can get culture going, that's why I even think fashion. That's why we got the blue bees, you know, because the bee here is here it is, the bee free, because you know, this is a blue banded Australian bee, doesn't live in a hive, doesn't follow a queen, and but still pollinates flowers, still wants to be a part of society, but it wants to be sovereign. There's I think long term is the way. I don't think I'll ever see victory. I think my job is to document what I can of this for people in the future to look back on and go, wow, this is all what MSN said, but we have these books here and stories of what really happened in that time, or another person's perspective. And in the future, the people always make heroes from the past. They're not going to go through our stories and make heroes out of people that took 10 jabs and wore a mask every time the government said, and then got a digital ID as soon as they could. That person is never going to be in heroic stories. The people who are going to be in heroic stories are the ones that stood up. That's it. And so to me, this is why I interview people like you, Michael. This is why I've interviewed a lot of the main people in the movement, the Australian movement, because I want them to be remembered for the heroic characters they are. This is from grandmothers like Margie and Margie's Mugs in Mildura, or Tricky, or all these other unnamed people that have literally, you know, unknown by most of Australians, but have done great things to stand up and try fight any way they can. And even if they fail, the fact that they fight still produces more hope than someone who doesn't fight. At least there's some hope.
I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying, but here's the thing. There's a very, very big difference between, like, you know, the jab, like, you know, COVID and this. Because you want to play long term, that's fine. But if, like, you know, digital ID, the rollout is successful, and after that, like, you know, obviously, like, you know, money as we know it now will be eliminated. Right? People say, like, you know, get all your money in cash. Well, that's great. That's still government money, right? Government says tomorrow, no, there's no such thing as Australian dollar anymore. Now it's e-dollar and it's tied to your digital wallet, and that's the only thing, right? So it's basically, it's like the point of no return, right? So it's like we are like now, like literally with our back against the wall, and like there's the cliff right here. That's the cliff, right? So you can talk about, like, you know, commerce and planning for the long term and all. I'm not against that. All good. That's awesome. But you are falling down the cliff.
Well, you say that, but we thought that in the first ever protests. I used to say in my first speeches, the first ones I did, I can see the edge of democracy. It's just there in front of us. That's how close we are to the end. Now, if we had started these ideas then, we'd be 5 years down. Chances are there would be businesses that we would have had that thing.
Agreed.
So even though we might have the edge to the thing, we actually do not know what's going to happen. We can only surmise, we can guess, but the humanity always moves forward. There will always be pushback to some degree. And I know they think this thing is perfect, but nothing's perfect. They think this is perfect and it'll all keep us controlled. But people are very good at getting around things. Very, very good. You know, I remember when they brought computers into the schools, they adamantly told the parents that there's no way their primary school kids could get past the security blocks they had on their iPads. It was foolproof. The kids would never
I have
get
to
past
agree with
it.
Martin here. There is no long term with digital ID. It is different, Michael. It is very, very
I
different.
disagree, Guy, because what you do, I'm going to tell you something now, Martin. Martin, you've got 4 kids, 5 kids, Martin. You have to sell them hope. Okay? Digital ID's coming. There's no way we can stop unless a miracle happens. So if it happens, we can't say, well, that's the end. We're in prison. So we have a moral obligation to sell, not to sell hopelessness, no matter how tight its grip. And with 4 little children, Martin, you are morally obligated to do that no matter what. So we got to talk solutions. And we don't have guns. We can't fight them front on. And we don't have a populace that will join us. So we're going into the darkness. But in every single darkness, there is light. There is always a dawn. Nothing lasts. Gandhi said that. Tyrants come and they look like they will never fail, but they all do. All of them. And everyone says this won't happen. And I know you're saying this, but we don't know. Maybe they'll run out of power to charge the data centers, and suddenly they'll run out of power. Or maybe who knows what can happen. But we have to fight because we're worthy of fighting for. And not only are we worthy of fighting for, but our kids and our grandkids and the next one. If we've got the bad luck of being in a position where we have to fight despite there being no hope, and the Hungarians have a saying of fighting without hope. Dr. Borsos is on here, taught me about it. Usually when I'm playing with chess, that's how to play him because he always beats me. But you have to fight without hope, and you have to keep going. But we have a moral obligation not to sell hopelessness, because every time you sell hopelessness, a light goes out. And you have 5 lights in your house, Martin. You need to keep them glowing. So you got to find hope, brother. You got to find hope. This is not the end. It's just going to be very, very, very hard, very difficult. And maybe it'll get so fucking difficult, Australians will go, this is fucked. I mean, think of it. Every time someone's got a facial ID to get on the thing, you know, men might go, fucking fuck this and stop doing it. Maybe they'll stop using the internet. We don't know. We don't know. I understand it's dark and I understand it's dangerous, but we don't know. Everyone, remember COVID. Everyone said by now, everyone will be dead. Half the population will be dead by the vaccines. They're not. They're not. We have lost people. A lot of people have been injured, but the majority of people survived. And there's a lot of people who took the jab having had no effect. So we don't know. We just don't fucking know. So we should stop acting like we do. And what we should do is we should follow the past. I mean, look at you Jews. They went to the Holocaust. You telling me in the midst of the Holocaust that they could see any hope at the end of that tunnel? No. But hope came.
Yeah. Look. Yeah. I mean, I still posit that digital ID is different. Why? Because digital ID marks the transition. So, you know, in the current situation where we are, there is a very significant challenge of how the minority can rule over the overwhelming majority, whatever. I mean, there's different arguments, how many of them are there, 20,000, 2,000, 30,000, 300, it doesn't really matter. And there's billions of us, right? So they have a significant challenge how they're going to control that.
Yeah.
Once digital ID and everything that comes after that is essentially automatic, right? Digital currency, social credit score. That I guess handicap that they have is gone. They don't need it's almost like they don't matter. Just let the AI run everything. That's it. And you say the wrong, you freaking think the wrong thing, and a freaking drone will show up outside your house. I mean, there is no long-term solution. This is the point where it has to stop.
They say that, but you don't know. They say that, but we're very innovative. And you think back to
the technology is ready now, Michael. I can tell you
I understand, but say back in Romania. I was years ago, I was renting a house with some Romanian who's had escaped Ceausescu, and they used to tell me it will never fall. It's the end to everything. Every second neighbor is a spy. They know everything. There's no way it'll ever fall. There's no way it'll ever fall. And then it fell. And it fell because the people overcame the greatest virus of all, fear. Suddenly they went frightened to die. They're going, I'm leaving the house. I'm not putting up with this anymore. They want to kill me. They can kill me. But they couldn't kill all of them. And so they fought back. And eventually they gave in. You know, and if you talk to these Romanians, then the stories, the torture they went through, you know, the guys were saying they were put in concrete cells where they had to sleep on their hands, knees, and their elbows because otherwise they'd freeze to death. You know, and how utterly terrible it was, and yet it fell. And so I know it's bad. It's coming. I do. I really do. And I hate it. I don't like the fact that it's coming. But I still believe there's hope. I still believe there's always hope, even if it gets to the point where they've got the whole populace of the world and most people start going, we don't care, kill us, whatever, we're not doing it anymore. We start ripping down the cameras. We start ripping down the 5G towers. If everyone starts doing it all at once, they can do nothing. Nothing, you know? And this is what might happen. This is in the future. It's the only way they can do it is if they keep us happy. If they keep us that we're unhappy, we're hungry, we're starving, it'll be like the French Revolution. And it won't matter how many fucking robots they've got once we get hungry enough. So I do feel I don't wish it was coming, but I do feel that we have a moral obligation. And I was told this by a young woman very early on in the march. And I've stuck to it all my entire time. We have a moral obligation not to sell hopelessness. We just do.
I agree. No
matter how tight its grip. Yeah. Yeah.
Look, yeah, I think
and that's hard.
there is a video. I don't know. A lot of people I think in the audience will probably be familiar with it. It's called Utopia. So it describes Australia, right? So this is a few and think about how they've done. And this is when you think about it, this is very realistic and it is brilliant how it was implemented because there are no cops. There is no police, right? There are no enforcers. People snitch on each other for a 10% commission of the fine. Yeah. And some people make their entire livelihood, like that old lady that just goes around and takes photos of everyone, dropping a handkerchief or whatever, or bandana, right? There will be people like that. There are people
they're already here.
There are people like that doing the mandates who were calling the police. Oh, my neighbor has 4 people there.
Yeah. Yeah, those people exist. They love it. They love order. Even Richard Wollstonecraft, he's a good one to interview. He's studied all this. He said there is a healthy part of the population that actually likes living under dictatorships. They like it. We actually talked about the other night. They feel freer because the laws are clearly designed. You do this, you go to a gulag. You don't do it, you don't. Fine. There's my world. I am free within this little bowl. They like it. It makes them feel safe. I mean, look, even now the government came out today pushing digital ID. You listen to her say the word. It's all about keeping Australians safe. Safe from who? You. We actually want to be safe from you, and you're the ones telling us they're going to keep us safe.
But the numbers buy it. The numbers lap it up. Oh, yeah, it's good. My kids will not be on, on Instagram and be, groomed by pedophile, right? That's a lot of people are like that, right? So that's not because they want to live under a dictatorship or something like that, but because they don't understand the implications, right? So this is where we get into the thing of incrementalism, right? So look, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I definitely I'll be the first to say
I don't know. Honestly, I'm saying, yeah.
I don't profess to have all the answers, but what I do know is everything that we've done so far has not worked. And we need to change direction, and we also need to get our shit together and stop fighting over nonsense, right? That doesn't even matter. People may think that it is very, very important, right? Immigration, no immigration, this, that. And look, yeah, maybe it is. But let's win the war first, and then you can argue if you want to have immigration or not.
Yeah.
So I don't
unless
know.
the
I mean,
immigrants are
we
part of
become
the
so
way to wipe us
scattered.
out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know.
it's
I
been
don't know.
great having
I
you on. You should consider having it again if you want, because there's so much to talk about that it's hard to cram it into one show. Like you said,
yeah.
immigration is a show. You know what I mean? Other things are a show. There are so many. Like you said, Israel. What happened in Israel? There are so many holes in that story that it just doesn't make sense, and yet we've been sold bullshit. But now, I remember not Tabitha, but another Romanian said, you used to watch TV, but you knew it was all bullshit. And your parents would tell you it's all bullshit. Don't believe any of it.
100%.
That's where
But
we are
anyone who
now.
grew up in communism knew that.
But that's where we are now.
Yeah.
It gets on the TV, it's all bullshit.
100%.
The BBC, the head of the BBC has just had to resign because he fraudulently edited Trump's speech to make it sound like Trump had inspired the Capitol, you know, where they all came to the Capitol and they walked through the White House. They engineered that, the head of the BBC. So we can't even trust the head of the BBC. We can't trust anyone, just ourselves. Just ourselves. There's no white hats coming to save us. There's no anyone. We're going into the darkness, and what we need is each other, because that's all we have. That's all we have. And we have to discuss like this. I'm happy to disagree with you, Michael, even though you have my name. I'm happy to disagree with you because I think that is a power. If we can have a power to disagree and still talk, still be friends, we can do that. They can't. And they're selling the world tyranny. We're selling the world you. We want to have a world where in that world, Michael Ginsburg is allowed to be Michael Ginsburg, as long as he's not a pedophile or a serial killer. As long as he's not hurting anyone, he can be Michael Ginsburg, and he enriches the world by bringing the only Michael Ginsburg that's ever existed in that body to the palate of humanity. And that's
so what do you
we're
reckon,
offering.
Michael? Maybe this would be like a good thing to end it on. But what do you think we can do in the immediate term, like right now? Yeah, bring commerce and all that stuff. I'm all for that. But in the immediate term, tomorrow morning, something that we can take action on that may have a chance of moving the needle, or at least has a better chance than everything that we've done so far. Right? We're not going to go for more marches or sign more petitions. What can we do tomorrow?
When I went to hospital changed my life in a way that I had a heart attack, and the nurses there did not know we existed. So what I realized in hospital is if you decided to go against the government, you began an odyssey. You lost friends, you lost family, maybe lost jobs, you couldn't go into places, your country was lost. You had to survive all these things. You went on an odyssey. It's more than a journey. If you took it and it didn't affect you, it was just another Monday. I was in the cardiology ward. These people had seen the myocarditis. They talked about it, but they didn't connect it. They were disconnected. They didn't know there was a freedom movement. They didn't even know there was a need for a freedom movement. And that's because the algorithms do not let our voices out. We are kettled. You said in the show with Robin, we have to hit the town halls. We have to get out and start speaking to people directly. If we rely too much on social media like this, and we're always shadow banned, and the more powerful you get, the more shadow ban you get, or they take your page down, like my Cafe Locked Out page, 10-year ban. They'll do whatever. We need to keep social media, but we need to start discussing with people face to face, like taxi drivers do. And we need to start the discussion, because what we have to try sell to people, and it's too far, they won't buy it just yet, but we have a better future to offer them. And maybe they need a real taste of the darkness to go, we don't want this. And it might take that, because I think it'll go slow. They'll do digital ID. It'll come in, might not be so bad. People think, oh, it wasn't as bad as we thought, because they do things incrementally. And then it'll be 6 months or a year later, they'll come back with something else. And bit by bit by bit, it's like osmosis. And yeah, I wish I could tell you, Michael, I do. This is why I told people I'm not a leader. I'm sort of a documenter. I'm watching it. I like sharing my thoughts, but
I
I
I don't think anyone
know.
needs to be a
I
leader to
don't
come
know
up
what
with ideas.
I don't know what to do at the moment. I like capitalizing. I like producing ideas. Like I found the Forest of the Fallen. I sold that. 832. I sold that. Now we're trying to sell the Blue Bees, which came from Melissa. I look for ideas that are simple to replicate and create unity or do something. So the Forest of the Fallen is very powerful. So I'm always after ideas like that. Now we've got the banned book club because I think in the future literature that can't be corrupted on the page. Like Malcolm Roberts says it too. I think I'm working with a guy called John, and we think smaller books you can fit in your pocket. You know what I mean? That have, say, your thoughts. You have great thoughts. You know, you're in the thoughts of Michael Ginsburg, this is what he thinks on this. And so I can read it on a tram, and it can't be edited by AI. It's in my hand. It's mine. It's a truth. Because what's happening now is you get on social media, you don't know what's true anymore.
Yeah.
2 out of 3 things are AI,
Yeah.
and that's going to get worse. So I think people will gravitate away from social media because they'll think, well, it's all fake. And so there's things like that. I've had 2 weeks off social media. I've hardly done anything, and I feel like a different human being. I feel stronger. I feel more. I'm getting more focused. Now I'm just figuring out what direction to go next because I'm really into the philosophy of it, thoughts. That's why I was excited to get you on, and it's been great having you on. It's thoughts, talking, discussion, getting people talking, figuring out these problems. That's why they want to end freedom of speech, because freedom of speech is a weapon out of tyranny. If you have the courage to talk, you can identify problems and come up with solutions. If you don't, you just sit there sulking, hoping they're not going to take you to a gulag, you know?
Yeah, look, I mean, social media and stuff like that. I mean, I can tell you as a tech guy, I mean, that was always part of the control mechanism. I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah.
That's what algorithms are for. I mean, that's why, you know, I mean, I'm personally like, I mean, I'm only really on one social media platform, Substack, but I mean, I'm stepping away from that, even regardless. Like, I probably would have done it regardless, but like, you know, obviously that, like, you know, December 10 deadline was kind of the impetus for that, and I'm moving to, like, you know, to my own platform, my own website, my own private community, my own stuff where first of all, I know that people are real,
we're doing
right?
The same. Yeah, we've got a Fort Clo. Yeah, we're kind of doing the same.
You know, but again, I mean, but it will be by definition, I know, right? It will be people, awake people, right? I mean, you wouldn't get a normie, like, you know, joining me, like, you know, they're there because
No.
they're like, they're not there, right? So we still need to find a way to reach them. So the way to reach a normie, like from my perspective, the way I see it, and that's what, like, you know, I've discussed in previous interviews, the normie will still watch the 6 o'clock news, right? And when the ads come on and the ads say that, like, you know, a digital ID, like, you know, will get hacked and you will lose all your money, and you show like a video of an old lady that lost all her life savings because, like, you know, someone hacked my digital ID and now I'm penniless. That works, right? I mean, look, maybe people are more scared to lose their home and lose their house than to lose their freaking lives. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, the story that you told me is freaking mind-blowing. It's freaking mind-blowing, but maybe that's where we are. Maybe the money and the problem is more important.
Yep. I think a lot of people out there risked their lives to take the jab. They knew it could kill them. I've talked to these people. They knew it could kill them, but they wanted to hold on to their stuff, including their family. And it wasn't just the home, it's a roof over their children's head. It was an act of love. The fact is that they couldn't see that a greater act of love would be to think of the children's future and their grandchildren's future, and have joined us and all said, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not locking this up. We're not shutting the country down. We're not shooting our own people. But we didn't. And hopefully the lesson is that, like when they 60% voted no in the Voice, I thought, oh, this is good. But Labor's just brought it in Melbourne. Like we mean nothing. We mean nothing. So it's up to the people once they say. But, you know, the power bills are getting high. Food's getting high. They're getting hungry. They're going to be broke. They're going to be losing stuff. At some point, there could be one single catalytic incident which could which could, like the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring started from one young man setting himself alight in a marketplace where they were trying to bribe him, and he set the whole of all the Arabic countries on fire, even though they just went back to normal afterwards. But
it's not just that;
yeah,
it's a bit more. I can tell you, yeah, that story is true. But I mean, after that, it was obviously, as always happens with stuff like that, and like color revolutions, it was corrupted by other interests, right? It always happens.
yeah, of course,
right?
of
So
course,
yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, the problem that I
single
have, and that's
incident
why
itself is just one, so we could be just one incident away from. I always thought vaccine injuries. If one more child had died on camera, maybe that would have been it. One kid fell down and died in camera, and from the vaccine. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that story that you told me, I mean, with that lady that her husband died and she took the jab to go on a cruise. I mean, that kind of floored me. I don't know what to say after that. So
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
is what I live with, man. These are the stories I've heard every day. Not as bad as that, but you hear them and they won't fit anywhere inside you.
nah.
It doesn't make sense
It
from a
doesn't
human
compute.
perspective.
It's like okay,
Doesn't
like it's
compute.
like it doesn't compute. It's like okay, doesn't.
Which
Yeah,
is why
I don't know. I don't know.
there's different species of people. We haven't realized it. There's different species, but maybe that's I don't know. But we progress. And it makes
Like
for
do
interesting
what they
times.
do in New Hampshire, start your own country. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know. I mean, well, if that's the case, I mean, I literally I don't have anything in common with a woman like that, and then never ever will. Like, there's no chance. Like, we won't even she might as well be speaking Chinese. Like, I will never have any common frame of reference that I can even talk to her. So her husband died of AstraZeneca jab, and she took the AstraZeneca jab so she can go on a cruise. Like, I mean, how would I communicate with a person like that on any matter? Like, what am I gonna talk? What am I gonna tell her? I don't know. I mean, that just floored me. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
She's not alone, man. It just happens to be one that stayed with me. And I captured that one. I've actually got it on tape. But I'd have to find it out because it's not one I look at much. Anyway, I'm going to go out with a song. It's an uplifting song called Goodbye Road, which is from my novel. And this is about two people who are going against the government who found each other and fell in love. So this is Martine, and I can't remember the guy's name, Gino. And so it's so this is the thing of making our culture. So I'm using AI for the music on my lyrics, and this is what I'm doing. I don't know if it's going to work, but I do know that the hippies took over a generation, and they didn't do it with guns. They didn't do it by seceding. They did it with art and fashion, free love, and lots of drugs. And we can't remember any of the leaders much, but we can still sing their songs, and that's how it is. And so I'm not of the belief that there is an answer or a golden bullet anywhere around us. I think we just have to decide, what do you want to do with your time on the planet? Do you want to just give in and walk along and adapt? Or do you want to fight for something that's worth fighting for, which is humanity itself? Good night, Michael. It's a pleasure to meet you. And hopefully you'll come back on. I think it'd be great, brother. It was really great having you on. I really loved it. Cheers.
Cheers. Hoping
to meet you someday. Take care. This is Goodbye Road, guys. See you tomorrow. Lee's coming back tomorrow. The pharmacist coming back tomorrow. 8 o'clock.
Martin was a nurse with dark clouds in her face that would weep for no reason down Goodbye Road. Drove up from Melbourne, her life in one case, and sat in my office, said, I'm looking for a home. Don't you have someone, somewhere to go? Where are you from, John? I really want to know. Is it like that billboard near the end of their line? Because keep rolling, honey, and you'll find mine. Sometimes you have to head out on your own, because you can die of hunger trying to suck love from a stone. Sometimes you have to go build your dream home from the orphan's haunting. goodbye road. Love on one hand, freedom on the other. Gino said no to the jabs and lost his job and his brothers. He found Martine in a stand in the park, where after buying her a coffee, he asked as she stirred, don't you have someone, somewhere to go? Here is somewhere, you're cute, don't you know? Close your eyes, Gino, and you will see orphans can build homes on Goodbye Road. Gino stayed night after night. Then Martine whispered, let's build a light. For my soul is hungry and my heart is on fire, because it knows my love, because it now knows. Sometimes we have to head out on our own, because you can die of hunger trying to suck love from a stone. Sometimes we have to go build our dream homes with the orphans haunted